Okay, good afternoon, everyone. It's 3:34 p.m. I'm calling this meeting of the Maple Broadband Executive Committee to order for July 13th, 2026. So the first item on the agenda is to approve the agenda as distributed. I'll entertain a motion to approve. Okay, Nancy, can I get a second? Shannon? All right, and I would like to request a modification to the agenda that we rename 6C from ADP marketing to canvassing. Okay, would anyone else like to make any modifications to the agenda? Okay, all in favor of the agenda as modified, please raise your hand or say aye. Okay, and that's all of you. So next up is approval of the minutes from June 22nd. They have been distributed along with the agenda. I'll entertain a motion to approve.
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you. Can I get a second? Spada? Okay. Anyone like to make any changes? Any changes to the minutes? Okay, hearing none. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, and Sai, you abstaining?
I'll abstain. Yep.
Okay. Next up is public comments. Would anyone like to make a public comment at this time? Okay, hearing none. Over to you, Steve, for the chair report.
Going to defer on my chair report to give us more time to discuss substantive matters. So let's move on.
Okay, and the executive director report, I am going to do similar because all the items that I'm working on are covered down below in the agenda and should be fairly obvious to everyone from previous meetings. I will just note that I filed our biannual BDC reports with the FCC earlier today. So thank you to our service providers, WCBT and Mission, for getting me the information timeously. It's not due until the end of August, but it's always good to get these things done so you don't have to worry about them. Okay, moving on, section 6A. So the agenda item is 2026 ARPA expenditures and closeout. So we have a number of different things that are proposed. As you will have seen from the email, I've identified a construction firm that has availability for a buried crew to do the work that was discussed in Virgins. They are one of the 3 crews that's been working with NEKCV for some time. So obviously they wouldn't have been recommended to us if that's some form of endorsement, but I did specifically reach out to Matt Hubbard, who some of you will recall was our construction oversight individual when he worked for Mission Broadband a few years back, and now works for NEKCV. And he essentially said, yes, I mean, they do very good work and it is buried work, so you can't just let them build it without oversight. You know, don't be an idiot, but basically he endorsed them. So they have indicated they have crew availability, they have given pricing, and I have put that pricing into the estimated bill of materials. And there are still some other things we need to talk about, some other materials and pedestal acquisition and so on. But the good news is with that unit pricing, we can do all of the buried work that we talked about in Virgins some weeks ago and should be able to have money to spare. So my suggestion in the email in relation to this is that you guys authorize me for up to a certain amount. I've suggested 300,000. You can make a little bit less or a little bit more. But if you give me an amount, then I can get into the details with them around the exact labor and materials, the exact scope, and then contract for up to that amount. And then should we need to come back for a little bit more once we've taken to the next level of detail, we can do that in our meeting in 2 weeks. But that would give us enough time. So next meeting in 2 weeks, yeah. Anyway, our next executive committee meeting, whenever that is, and that would then give us enough room to be able to move to contracting and get going. The other thing I'll add is most of the work is in either we already have existing easements we can ride on that we've confirmed, or is in the right of way of the city of Virgins, and Shannon has helped me out with that so that we understand the notification process. But basically we can break ground as soon as I'm comfortable with contract, and then also as soon as we have construction oversights booked. So that's the first topic I have. There's actually a number of authorizations under this discussion topic, but that's the very first one because that's the biggest one. Questions?
Yeah, let's put a motion on the floor and then we can deal with questions. I'd make a motion, and Harry, you want to limit this to the approving the construction not the oversight, and that will be a separate motion.
Yes, because this
Okay.
motion is for contracting the specific entity.
Okay, so, I move that we approve, expenditure to, what are we saying, $300,000 to, affect ARPA construction plan for this year. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, thanks. We get a second from Nancy and Shannon. I got a couple questions, Ellie. I did call Matt. I wanted to kind of, when I saw that the contractor that you're proposing to use, I thought I'd ask him a few more questions about it, and I both called him and texted him, and I haven't heard back from him. But I would like to have a conversation with him before we go too far. I also am extremely worried about 10 weeks to do everything that needs to be done between now and when ARPA goes away. And so I think the thing that would probably ease my concern is if you could create in the next day or two, like a milestone chart, because I'm thinking of all the things that need to be done. There's a lot of things that need to be done that we haven't done yet. We need to execute an agreement with a contractor. We need to purchase, somebody needs to purchase materials. We need to approve those purchases. We need to get a legal review on the agreement. Once the construction starts, we need to make sure that we allocate sufficient time so that if there's deficiencies on the installation, there's time to effect correction before everything turns into a pumpkin. So I think the only way to at least ease some of my concerns would be to ask you to create a high-level milestone chart, so something that we can work against so that we can track how we're progressing. That makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, those are all tasks that I'm aware of. I think that's fine. What I'd spoken with ITG about is presuming that we get a sign off today that we would work towards breaking ground or having the crews mobilized in early August, because I think that gives us enough time to do the legal work and get the construction oversight done. That is, of course, pending materials. I think the very first thing, and I spoke to Waitsfield earlier, so we'd want to get together a call with them to make sure that we're really clear about what materials, because we already have the cable, the 72 and the 24 count cable that we need. We have that, but we need to be clear on where everything else is coming from and who has it. I mean, most of the stuff either should be in stock or should be easily procurable. So, but that would be the only real concern. And then we have all of August and all of September to get the work done, and it's about 2.3 miles. So I mean, you're right that we are under some time pressure, but I'm not overly concerned.
Yeah, and materials also include splice closures and pedestals. They have to, I mean, maybe they're half sorted out. I think we know what we're planning on doing with the splice closures. We're gonna buy the 530s that we've been using historically from WCBT. I assume that's what you have in mind. And then I think we still have zero direction yet on what we're gonna do with splice closures. And so we need to get, I mean, the best way to do this, since we're expecting WCBT to support it, is they have to approve whatever it is we're going to deploy.
Yep,
So
I had a
anyhow,
similar conversation with, I spoke to Waitsfield about that this morning, actually. We overloaded a call on something else to talk about this. So totally agree, but they're not concerned about the supply of pedestals. So the 530s are in stock. There's only a handful of them for a couple aerial routes that are needed. And those aerial routes are already licensed. And yeah, we just need to be clear on who's supplying the 56 pedestals and what are they.
So anyhow, I guess my point is, it's appreciate your kind of covering all those items. I think what I'm most interested in is something in writing that captures some tasks and completion dates, so that we can be sure that we're keeping to the schedule.
Yep, that's all right. I don't mind doing that. I actually made a similar comment earlier today in a totally separate context, that it's useful to have a project plan when you're dealing with a time constraint, just to make sure nothing's missing. So I'm happy to do that, and I can share it. We can discuss that at the next executive committee meeting, although obviously we'll be progressing it between now and then. And Steve, it obviously goes without saying that in your volunteer role for some of these pieces, I'm going to want your eyes before we actually sign the dotted line anyway. Okay. All right. So we have a motion and second on the floor. Are there any other comments or questions or concerns? Okay. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. right, and that is all of you. Okay, so the next thing is we've now approved an authorization for construction work. We need construction oversight. So this is one where we are, again, under some time pressure here. And as you guys all know, we're planning to put out a request for proposals for BEAD oversight because that's going to be a much larger project of, 100 plus miles in many months. This one is under 3 miles of construction, mostly buried in some area that we expect to get done in a couple of weeks from start to finish, hopefully. So what I have done here in preparation is really I've checked around to see who might be available, which is we've worked with Mission Broadband before. They don't really have a body anymore because the one we were working with most recently retired. They don't have someone in Vermont. We did check that GWI and Mac Mountain had previously had bodies. They no longer have bodies that are available. So what I am suggesting is that we move forward with JSI, which is our engineering firm, and they have indicated that one of the people that has been doing the drop design for us has the capability to do construction oversight. So again, it's a relatively small project on a short turnaround. So my suggestion is let's just keep it simple. We could probably do better if we took more time and tried to get other bids, but let's just work with what we have. So my suggestion again is to pre-authorize for an up to $50,000. I don't think it's going to cost anywhere near that much, but I would rather have too much money and then have too little and then have to have an emergency email authorization. So that is my suggested motion on that.
All the diligence associated with this has been done by you, and we have no visibility to it, correct?
The diligence of what do you mean?
Making decisions about available on-site construction oversight people. Give us a report like Mission.
You were the one who contacted Tom Cecere. You told me they didn't have anyone. So yes, I called Mission. I'm the only one who spoke to Jason Gay. That's correct.
We're in a hurry. Okay.
I mean, if you guys would like, and if it's, I'm not sure if anyone has an opinion on this, but we can authorize an up to amount with vendor unspecified in order to give a little bit more time for Steve and I to shake the bushes and see if JSI is the best bet or not.
I think JSI is the best solution, Alan. We know that they're good. The worry is 50,000 is really high, even if that's what they hit, and it's probably going to be a hell of a lot less than that. But we have no control over it. We really don't know. It's a swag right now. So, and I don't know what we can do. If for some reason we run through the 50,000 and then work's not done, we're going to have to just authorize more expenditure. It's not best practice.
Well, I mean, that said, I'm not sure how else we do it because this is going to be time and materials, hourly, number of hours times an hourly wage. And so the question is like, what's the lowest hourly wage and who do we think can do the work? So I think right now unfortunately, there's not a ton of bodies who have these skills in Vermont full stop. And we don't have the leverage we'll have with BEAD to be trying to get other people from out of state who might be able to get better rates on longer term accommodation. So do you want to move ahead with the motion for JSI?
Yeah, I'll make a motion. I move that we approve up to $50,000 for construction oversight associated with the ARPA construction plan. Is there a second? Thank you.
Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye.
I'm going to abstain, Ellie.
Okay, Steve is abstaining. Okay, so that is all of you. The next one is I got back earlier today, literally like an hour or so ago. I got a make-ready work order from Green Mountain Power for the aerial routes we discussed in the town of Middlebury. And so, as I said in my email, we have $290,000 in change in town ARPA money that can be spent all the way up through the end of the year. So under the 3.700 rule, if we pay this week, because they don't process until we get payment, but if we pay this week, next week, call it end of July by the time they process it, the make ready will be done by the end of September, and we still have 3 months to complete that aerial work. So I think it makes sense to proceed with that work as previously suggested. And the make ready estimate, there's 3 poles that need to be replaced, and then there's some other miscellaneous aerial work. So the make ready work order, make ready invoice is $36,000, $590.95. So I would like to request authorization to pay that make-ready invoice.
So moved.
Okay, is that a second from Cy? Second from Nancy? Okay. Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, all right. And then the final one, Steve and I were emailing earlier today because Old Town Road also needs construction oversight, which we had previously worked with JSI to do on a time and materials basis. And Steve has identified a couple of other resources who he and I are both happy to recommend to the executive committee or happy to move forward with. And so I suggested that we take it to the executive committee to get pre-authorization just so we don't accidentally run up against our joint discretionary purchasing threshold as purchasing agents. So Steve, do you want to give a little bit of context here?
Sure, yeah, sure. So there's work happening on 2 points at Old Town Road, and the conversation that we're having right now is on the portion of Old Town Road that hasn't been dug yet, no trenching done yet, which is basically the east half of the road. And based on our past experience with the work that was done on the west half of the road, which was poor, we've got Eustace, our contractor, going out to the site and correcting flaws that were discovered when we did an audit of the work. So we learned the hard way that the infrastructure on the west end of the Old Town Road, when it was done, was inferior and would not necessarily meet our needs. So the big lesson there is we have one more batch of trenching. It's about 0.6 of a mile on the east side of Old Town Road, and we'd be fools to not hire and qualified party to oversee the construction, make sure it's done properly the first time, so we don't need to go into a panic, get things taken care of later. So, well, Ellie and I did a quick back and forth via emails just a half an hour ago. We don't know how long it'll take for the construction of that section of road to go. It could go really fast. My worst case scenario is about 4 weeks. Best case scenario, it could be done in a week, week and a half, something like that. Hard to know. We do not have a start date yet. I'm working with Green Mountain Power to try to firm that up. But ultimately, we did identify through Ellie's network qualified people, one individual specifically, who has for years worked for ValleyNet, doing work for EC Fiber. Basically, they had their fingers in the middle of that the entire time. They're highly skilled and will do a good job for us. And we're going to help them kind of kick off their new business, which is a partnership of 2 people. And it seems like it's a pretty good match for what we want to do. I think the other thing I pitched to Ellie is that it's a lot to me like Mission Broadband. We've used in Mission Broadband in one capacity or another in the past. And we know that if we need them, they're a trusted resource that we could use. And I think my hope is that if we're satisfied with the work that Danielle Muma and her associate, if they perform to what I would expect would be full good quality output, there'll be a resource we might be able to draw upon in the future. So the estimated cost based on what their rates is and kind of a worst case about 3 or 4 weeks of construction. That's 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, is $25,000, not to exceed $25,000. So I'm making a motion that we approve expenditure up to $25,000 to pay for construction oversight for the work that's going to be done shortly up in Old Town Road. Is there a second?
Steve, before we second it, can you repeat the name of the firm?
It's 2 people. And I can send you the resume. Danielle Mumma, M-U-M-M-A, is the lead. And her resume speaks for itself. She's basically kind of went off on her own now, but she worked for 20 or 30 years for EC Fiber, who did the construction down there. They're kind of should take a lot of credit for the work, the success there, and any mistakes that might have been made during the EC Fiber build. they figured out how to do it right. So I think we've got some potential institutional knowledge we're going to
Yeah,
easily draw upon.
I'm not questioning the credentials. I just could not understand what you actually said for the name.
Yeah, her name and her name is Daniel Moma. They're getting started. Their business starting. She was going into Montpelier today so that we can get the W-9 that we need before we can engage them. So,
Great.
Yeah.
Then I make a second.
Discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Thank you.
Great. Okay, and that is it for construction authorizations. So now that we're done, well, we're not entirely done spending money, but the next item on the agenda is for audit RFP selection. So Lynn, if you're comfortable, I will turn this over to you to talk about the bid process and the recommendation of the Finance Committee. You're muted.
We received 3 bids. We interviewed 2 firms, Ellie, myself, and Darlene Palmer, our accountant. And we met with the Finance Committee last Thursday, took questions from them, went through the the proposals, discussed the pros and cons. They were both excellent choices, very good choices. And all of us felt that way, and very good choices for similar reasons and different reasons. And the Finance Committee suggested that we get references from them. And Ellie, I know that you took the lead on that. Were you able to talk to folks?
I did. So sorry, Lynn, I was just double checking the title of one of the people I spoke with. Did you mention who the firm is that we recommended?
Oh, no. So the firm that we would like to recommend is, they're so similar to me. I'm sorry, I just have to pull my file.
It's Barry Dunn.
Oh, sorry, Barry Dunn.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Don't worry. We've all got too
Baker
many
Tilly.
names in our heads.
Yep. Barry Dunn.
Yeah, Barry
And,
Dunn, Baker Tilly. They were kind of similar
They're
corporate
kind of
names.
similar. And anyway, that's who we're recommending. And just a little bit about the decision. One is they're a regional firm. 2 is that we've had experience with one of the people that would be on our team, Julie Kim, I think her last name is. And they've worked with CUDs, and those all felt like really important pieces of the puzzle for us. So anyway, that's who I'm recommending. We also were able to firm up, the cost this year and the likely increase from year to year, so that we could do a little projecting over time about what the audit would cost. The other thing is they can come in very quickly and do the transition portion of like soon. As soon as we tell them we're going to hire them, they will reach out to our prior accountant and begin to do that work, that transition work from one CPA firm to another. The other thing is that they'll come in late October, early November, and begin testing for the first 3 quarters of the year. And I personally am excited about that. It takes the pressure off a little bit from having to have everything ready before the accountant will even talk to us. So anyway, those are some of the things for me, having participated in a couple of audits, that I see as positive changes.
Yep. So just to add on a couple of things, we asked Darlene for her recommendation. She was not able to make the Finance Committee meeting, and her recommendation was also Barry Dunn for similar reasons. And then just to second what Lynn said, some of the strongest feedback from the Finance Committee is that we have two good candidates who both have strong sector expertise, but the one that has small company and specifically ideally CUD expertise would, be kind of the preference, right? Because it's great to have rural Alabama or, like lots of telecom companies that might be larger, but just looking for similarity to us. And so I did reach out to Barry Dunn, and I did reference checks of two of the three. I wasn't able to reach the third, but the two that I did check with were two other CUDs. So one is EC Fiber, and the other one is DV Fiber. So I spoke with both of them, and no one had a bad word to say, not even anything. So I had a very long conversation with. So I spoke with Patrick Moreland, who's the executive director of DV Fiber. He's not really a finance guy, but he said like they were great, they were very professional, they were very friendly, they, the collaborative, and he appreciated that, validated what we'd heard about what they had told us. And because again, like all these firms are in a sales mode, but he validated, yes, they were collaborative, and that was great. And I spoke to Cliff Rankin, who's the director of finance at Vispo, which is the current operating company of EC Fiber. And I also had an email from Dan Childs, who's the treasurer over at EC Fiber. So similarly, and Cliff was actually a really interesting conversation because he's a former auditor himself. So he had a lot of really good things to say that I won't bore you with, but he was a big fan. So I think and as Lynn says, I've known them, worked with them a little bit for some time off and on, and I'm also very impressed. So I think I wholeheartedly endorse this selection. I think Baker Tilly is a really good firm. I think we couldn't have gone wrong with either one, but I think for the reasons that are specified, I think this is a great choice. So that is our recommendation. So the total for the first year, based on their proposal, is $48,325. So I think just for purposes of transparency, I think we're not asking for. We're asking to appoint them as our auditor, and we need to pay them when we need to pay them, but that's the proposal. So we need to move to contracting would be the next step.
Mm-hmm.
How much did we pay for the latest audit?
The latest audit was not a single audit, so it's not a good comparison. I think our latest audit was 20,500. The one previous to that was 30,000, but we are dealing with a different sort of firm. Like one of the other things with Batchelder is it's basically a one-woman show. And one of the things about both of these firms is that, yes, you're paying for the overhead of a larger firm, but both of them also have internal quality assurance departments who look over the work of the audit team. So it's really apples and oranges.
Mm-hmm. And just one other thing, they have a deep bench. It's not like it's one person or two people. There are many people, and personally, I think this is going to be a huge step up in all sorts of ways for Maple Broadband, and particularly with BEAD coming on. One of the things that both firms are on top of is they're aware that the BEAD grant is coming up, both firms, and looking at that, and if we were wanting additional advising, we can always go to Baker Tilly probably, and, just contractually, work with them just for additional advice or perspective. I'm not saying we need to do that, but that's how great these two firms are, that, if there's some additional research we want, they would be a great firm to go out to. So back to what Ellie said, I don't think there's any comparison in several ways between what we had and what I think we're going to get in terms of service and expertise.
Going back to how much we paid, Ellie, I know we did a single audit the previous year. How much do we pay for that?
That was $30,000.
30?
30.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So this 48,000 and change, whatever I just said, that includes a $4,000 once-off onboarding fee.
And did I get a sense that we don't know what it's going to look like year on year, whether it's going to be stable, or whether it's subject to change, or is it?
Oh, are you talking about the fee, Steve?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The fee, from year to year, the increase will be somewhere between 3% and 5%. That's historically what it's been.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's unreasonable.
Yeah, and then once you take out the once off $4,000 fee, the cost for the first and second year are going to be basically the same, because the 3 to 4%, 3 to 5% of the base less that once off fee is around $4,000. So we'll be paying about $48,000 to $50,000 for the next 2 years of audits each. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion? Si, you're muted.
I'll move that we accept the recommendation of the Finance Committee that we contract with Barry Dunn to be our auditor for the next 2 years? Or just at the end of contract with them to become our new auditor?
I think the latter. I think we should contract with them, and then we'll
Okay.
figure out the details.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Thank you. This is really exciting, and also for the record, a big thank you to the Finance Committee and to especially Lynn for chairing it, and to Darlene for helping with this review and adjudication.
Yeah,
So
and
this is
just a
great.
quick thing, the Finance Committee, all the members of the committee have so much knowledge about so many different things. And it's just very helpful to have that perspective. So I think Maple Broadband is lucky to have those folks
Yes, we really
advising
are.
us. Yeah.
It's a great committee to have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next item on the agenda, 6C, is canvassing. So under this, so I think I said in the email, we've been talking about this for some time, and wanting, I mean, it's been a very long time. We've been talking about going door to door to draw up interest in Maple Broadband full stop, and specifically around the affordable drop program, which is time limited. So on the back of that, one of the hardest things though is that this is getting this right. Like, you never get a second chance to make a first impression, and you don't want to send out untrained canvassers. So, and London Middlebury are great, and we sort of talked to them about a proposal, and I think they could have handled it, but it came up through discussions with them and with Alex that Alex is doing a great job. I think you guys can all agree. I see more of him than what you guys do, but he's doing a fantastic job running the affordable drop program operationally. And so I was talking with him about this, and one thing led to another. And Alex volunteered to help do some piloting of doing canvassing. And he actually went out doing some canvassing himself on July 3rd, really hot day. Because my biggest concern with all this is if you're going to go door to door, you need like hiring the right people, training them, overseeing them, making sure that everything is sorted out. That's more than I have the capacity to do right now. So either that needs to be done by, for example, London Middlebury, or by Alex. So Alex has expressed some interest in doing that, and I'm interested in working with him to do that. And so basically, we're coming to you today for a proposed authorization of up to $25,000 that would cover some of Alex's time. It would cover hiring canvassers. It would hire the mileage costs and literature materials and related ancillary expenses. And I want this to cover the affordable drop program, obviously, Maple Broadband just generally, so we can get a sense of the different things that work in different parts of our service territory based on, more rural versus urban, based on what level of competition there is. And then also depending on how things are going, one of the things that we definitely want to do for the BEAD program is drum up pre-interest, so we know where we're pre-running the drops, because it'll be cheaper and easier to do that as part of construction than later. So that is, I want to do some experimentation of that with part of the first $25,000. And if all goes well, it might very well make sense to extend it. But the idea here is to give us enough of a pot of money that we can hire people for a long enough period of time that we can go out there, get the learnings, and acquire some customers. Anything you want to add to that, Alex?
Well, do you want me to talk a little bit about knocking on a few doors, or is this not appropriate for open session? Because I could talk about the results of what I've already done?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah, okay. So just as a test to see what questions I got asked and things like that, I was able to knock on 97 doors in an afternoon. And then in the 2 weeks after that, 6 of those people signed up for service. So I think that's actually pretty good to increase the penetration rate by 6%. And that was in mostly a competitive areas. So expect that to be higher in unserved areas, obviously. But it was great. It was fun. People are nice. Yeah, it went very smoothly.
This is in Virgins, by the way. So he had some efficiency because he was walking and not having to drive from house to house. But people in Virgins are very nice. People everywhere are very nice in our district, I'm sure.
And so what would this initial $25,000, what would be the target areas? Because like right now, obviously, we can't offer service in Ripton, right? So there's going to be some areas that we should be getting involved with and others that we have to put on a back burner.
Yeah, well, Alex, feel free to jump in here, but I think what we'll do is we wanted to start with Virgins, where he'd hit a bunch of houses quickly to figure out what worked in battle card and objection handling and so on and so forth. But we would actually want to move to the more rural areas because what we're really interested in is trying to find people for the affordable drop program as the most time critical thing, and then we'd sort of move in from there. So as I said, a secondary objective is to understand better if there's a different battle card or objection handling versus, say, Comcast or versus Consolidated's DSL versus where we're head-to-head with fiber and go net speed territory. So I think we'd start in some of the more rural areas, get some learnings, but basically it would be our active service territory. So any areas that no one has ordered service yet, because some people have placed an order and then they've just stalled out. We probably don't want to be hitting those as a priority. We want to get fresh new ones.
And we think we can hit 2,000 houses with this budget.
Yep.
Based on the, calibrating the math of what I was able to do in an afternoon out to a more rural setting with driving.
Yep. And we do have about 2,000 households that don't have active service and haven't ever placed an order and seem to be occupied dwellings. But we may not actually want to use 100%. We may not want to hit 100%. We may want to move some of those into the beat areas. But again, if you just give us a block of money for 2,000 addresses, give or take, that gives us the flexibility.
And would you also be developing materials that if nobody is home, then we are able to leave something behind?
Yes.
And would this be just you, Alex, or would it also be people you will be training?
So we would need to train up some canvassers. So I would manage them, and I've managed field campaigns before, which is partly why I was interested in this. But I think we can find 2 or 3 canvassers to train that will be much more cost effective to allow us to reach more households. And that's kind of typical, where there's one person kind of guiding, coaching, training, and overseeing it, helping them plan their routes, and then they are the ones pounding the pavement.
Adam?
Hi. I like the idea. I've always liked this idea, though, that. But if we did 2,000 and we hit the 6% was accurate, that's 120 households basically for $25,000. So a couple $100 a piece. I think that's a really good ROI compared to what we're getting for advertising.
Yep. Yeah, I think the only caveat I'd put on this is that especially now with installation fee waived, we might have people who sign up for service and then churn before we make back our drop cost. And so I think one of the things we're going to want to do is to make sure that we track the cohorts that we think came from different sources. The same as we're tracking the cohorts who've had the waived installation fee, just to see if there's any learnings from that, because that is the big worry, that it takes us about 3 years to get back up to 0. But at the same time, also, once you have that drop there, even if the person doesn't take service again, if someone else moves in and does, that's part of your network. It's a capital investment. It's more just from a cash flow working capital standpoint, and that's a concern. So we shouldn't, I guess my point is, we shouldn't assume that the numbers math and we have 100% retention, because we don't. but our retention to date has beaten industry standards for rural networks like ours. So we just have to see how that continues to go. Okay, so would someone like to make a motion to authorize Alex and me to work on this program and spend up to $25,000?
I move that we spend up to $25,000 for canvassing services. Full stop.
Okay.
There's a second.
Okay, second from Cyrus faster, Nancy. You gotta be faster.
Yeah.
All right, any more discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Okay, and that's all of you. Okay, great. So the next item here is hub leases. So we talked about this a couple of weeks ago, and Steve had asked that I add this to the parking lot. And so I want to raise it here in executive committee because we didn't decide in executive committee to add it to the parking lot. There's 100 things in my to-do list that aren't in the parking lot. I think this is a fair one to add to the parking lot so you guys have transparency around it, but I didn't want to add it without the committee having signed off on it. So if you guys give me
Ellie,
thumbs
did you
up,
intentionally skip 6D?
No, I didn't. Sorry, but let me just finish with this one because I'm on the subject.
All right.
So if you guys would like me to add hub leases to the parking lot, give me the thumbs up and I will do it. And just a quick update as I'm talking is thank you. If anyone objects, now is a good time to raise your hand that you object. So I've reached out to the town of Shoreham to get myself on their select board agenda for later this year. And my plan in general is to do it in the fall when people are not hot and busy and out on the farm. And also when we're through bead contracting to reach out to the other two. So I will add that. Okay, so governance and reporting. So I can also let Shannon talk here a little bit, but one of the things that we had discussed some weeks ago in general is just making sure that we document by, go ahead, Steve.
Time check. We've got 15 minutes left before we would like to go into executive session.
This is quick and easy then. There are 4 documents that were in your packet that are draft, very basic drafts, to kind of cover the different roles. We don't need to talk about them tonight. We don't have to take any action right now. Read them, and then at a later date, we'll come back and talk about them more.
Yep, perfect. Okay, so now time check. We have 14 minutes, so I think we do have time to go through the updates. So the Finance Committee 7A, the Finance Committee, we met. We talked about that earlier in terms of the recommendation on the auditor. Lynn, was there anything else that came out of that committee that's worth discussing here? I don't think there is. I mean, just as a heads up, so you guys are all aware, just the regular annual calendars, we need to have our draft budget for next year as well as our pro forma in October, which means we need to be talking about it in this committee in September, which means that by the end of August, early September, we want to be talking about that in the Finance Committee. That was the idea. Actually, no, my dates are off a little bit. It was by the end of September, we wanted it through the Finance Committee so we could talk about it here in Executive Committee because our governing board meeting is the 3rd week of October. But anyway, it's that cadence is because August is when I usually start working on it. September is when we have drafts and we get those through review, and then it's ready for October. So we did talk about that just as a heads up, and a heads up to you guys as well that that's coming. So ARPA closeout. So we have received some initial reports from Luckgrove, which is the VCBB's outside plants, or the quality assurance firm the VCB engaged to make sure that we've done our construction properly to spec. They have given us 2 separate lists of punch lists. One is in relation to the outside plant, has about 50 things on it. And the other one is some OTDR reports for the splicing. So I'm working through those with Waitsfield and with Mission Broadband respectively. So I don't have any concerns at this point. We did this with phase 1. We just need to make sure that we address all of their concerns as one of the conditions of closeout. Steve, did you have something you want to say? Nope. Okay. I am still waiting for the template from the VCBB because there's some sort of a written report that we're meant to do and submit as part of closeout, and they have promised this, but I don't yet have it. So when I get it, I'll be filling it out. Affordable drop program. Alex, you want to give an update?
Sure, I'll do this quick. Try to match your speed. I'm looking for my screen to share, as always. Hold on. Okay, well, anyways, it's been a little while since we last checked in. So the numbers, there's quite a leap in some of these numbers, but that's partly some strong entry into the top of the funnel, but also it's been a couple weeks. So 52 total people qualified. The Eustis has really been cranking away on site surveys. They're keeping up with those almost almost completely every week, which is great. And we're in the phase of things where we really need to be pushing the conduit installation and the NID install, because we have now a great long queue of people who have signed contracts and are ready for the install. So that's my focus, is really hounding Eustis to get as many of those done as possible. They're doing a great job with that. We've gotten some great feedback from customers who have had great interactions with their staff, and lawns repaired really nicely. So definitely happy with the work on the ground. So anyways, any questions, let me know. If not, I'll turn it back over.
Yeah, one quick question. Can you remind me, I think we have a minimum goal that we were looking to try and reach by certain benchmarks or milestones timeframe? Can you remind me of what those were?
Yep. Budget wise, we estimated we had enough for 150 or 160 of these. And the deadline for ARPA is at the end of September, although that's when we need to do some reporting that will require that we are invoiced by then. So the deadline for actual construction work is probably in advance of that. So, are we on pace to hit that by the end of September? Probably not. But partly that's why we want to do more canvassing, and there's, always the chance of an extension. So.
And so then realistically, with the money that we just approved for canvassing, and needing to bring on at least, 1, 2, or even 3 individuals, training them for canvassing, meanwhile ordering and printing off the materials that would be involved with that. To get that material out, it takes a week to 2 weeks for people to say, yeah, I'm interested. And then this process here, is it actually realistic to think that canvassing is going to result in an increase in this process to meet the deadline of the end of September?
So I think that we can do our hiring and certainly print lit, which is already, mostly designed. We can repurpose other things and get people hired and starting in August. And we're going to target people who have the summers off, teachers, things like that. And if we can, I have some math to back this up, but if we can hire 3 canvassers, it won't take us more than, and if we can hire 3 canvassers and they commit to 25 to 30 hours a week, we can get all 2,000 addresses done in a month. And so that would be the month of August. So that's our goal. I'm certain we will be knocking on doors in August. We're going to work as hard as we can to get job descriptions out there and get people onboarded by then, so they can start in the beginning of August. But that's the path, I think, to maximizing this program with the September 30th deadline.
Yeah, and this is only the canvassing is only one of the many activities we have around the ADP marketing. Because we talked about the last executive committee engaging London Middlebury to do more B2B2C, which is engaging with more community organizations to reach out to the people that they know. So London Middlebury is working on that campaign as well. And Nancy, you had a question.
Well, just a reminder to us all, I think we were waiting for the VCBB to extend the deadline on the affordable drop grants. And I'm somewhat distressed, but not surprised that we're still waiting.
So this is not up to the VCBB. The United States Treasury has given a blanket extension on all ARPA capital projects, but you need to submit a justification of why you need it. So as of and those justifications are due by July 31st. So last I heard, they had not yet submitted it, but that may just mean that it has been submitted and I don't know about it. I don't know what U.S. Treasury's timeframe is to turn that around. But if they have put together a good and rational justification for why we need more time, I have every reason to expect that the Treasury would approve it. But until,
Ellie-
unless and until that happens, we're assuming the deadline is the deadline.
Okay.
And is there any possibility where we could request an extension as our own CUD as opposed to the umbrella? Okay.
No, it has to be done at the state level, which is the entity that did the grants, and then they have to submit a separate one for each specific subgrant. Okay, so we've got another 6 minutes. So anything further on that? I'm gonna fly through the rest. So BEAD, there's no major changes. I have made significant progress through the draft grant agreement in terms of separating that out into things that need to be changed in our network management agreements, things that might need to be in a new agreement specific to construction and WCBT service footprint and deliverables and so on. I reviewed as far as I've gotten with Waitsfield this morning. There's some niggly little things like, you know, cybersecurity plan that has to have a whole bunch of things, but that ball's in their court. They know it. And other than that, the other big thing is working with Waitsfield on getting a performance bond. This is a requirement of the project. We have to have a performance bond within 60 days. We're not going to get a performance bond before grant signature because it costs money. So obviously we need to sign the grant before we get it. So we've spoken with the surety that has worked with Selectronics, and as a backup, I'm going to be filling out an application with another surety company just so that we have a couple of lines in the water, because we want to have this all ready to go so that if there are any problems, that we can address them proactively, so we're not realizing this is a requirement and then scrambling around because there's a problem. So just wanted to let you guys know that's going on. So that's all I have on BEAD. Network management agreements, yeah, that has been submitted to VCBB and sent off to legal for review. That's also on the down below in the parking lot. So I'll continue to update that. And then we have Old Town Road and parking lots. So Steve, do you want to give an Old Town Road up? I think actually you talked about the Old Town Road earlier as part of the OPR, but do you want to take another 2 minutes? And then any questions from the parking lot?
Well, can we go back on network management agreement? So there was, she sent, she sent to you 3 documents. One is the basically carbon copy of what VCBB wants done, and nothing was done with that. And then there's another addendum, which I think was the pricing addendum. Is that one still? What's the status of those other 2? I think the one that you sent onto the VCBB is it's not really an agreement per se, right? It's an addendum.
So I'll answer the pricing one first because that one is easier. So the pricing one is not gone to the VCB or legal because it doesn't need to. I mean, this is our pricing with Waitsfield, and Arlene added to certain items that were missing from there before, but she hasn't changed any pricing. We've talked with Roger. He wants to change the pricing, and I've said, let's get the new agreement in place, and then we'll talk about changing the pricing. So that's the changes there. And the other one is Exhibit E, which is consumer protections that the VCBB made a requirement of Waitsfield's construction grant, that they have consumer protections that were substantially similar to what Fidium signed with the other CUDs that had partnered with Fidium. So I sent that to Roger to say, this document is old and it has some comments on here, and what do you think? And he replied to me to say, I'm happy with the current version of it. So I said, okay, fine, I've got that in writing, and I passed that along.
So the addendum that you sent to the VCBB, you consider complete and acceptable?
Yep.
So hypothetically, if they're okay with it as well, we can, and it's an addendum, right? We're not throwing out the window the old network management agreement. We're simply tacking this one on and using it kind of superseding where appropriate and things like that.
That's exactly right. And we had discussed here in this group before that doesn't make for the most readable thing in the world to have an original and then another document that says the original is wrong in the following ways, and please read it this way. But the work to update and redline the original to make it reflect the revisions should not be considered critical path to getting this signed, because we want this to be signed so that it is in effect for the protection of all parties for the updated business and legal considerations ASAP.
Thank you.
Okay, we're now at 4:29. I almost said the wrong time. Is there anything else in the parking lot anyone wants to pull up for discussion? I think we've covered quite a lot of this already earlier. Okay, so if not, this is a bit off topic, but the next meeting is scheduled for 2 weeks from today, and at that exact time, I'm going to be on an airplane returning back from South Africa to the US. So I wanted to know, would you guys like to meet without me, continue your executive session? Would you like to schedule the next executive committee meeting for another time? Would you like to skip it? Would you like to, how would you like to proceed?
Yeah, Ellie had kind of pitched me a variety of solutions involving either her participating at a different time on that same day, or holding the meeting without her in attendance and I would chair it, or setting a different date for the meeting, et cetera, et cetera. The one that would be the simplest one would be keeping the same date. Ellie needs to be on the way to the airport by no later than 2 in the afternoon Eastern time. So we could have a meeting the same day and Ellie could run the meeting if it was before 2. So if we maybe made it a short one, we could have it at 1 o'clock or something like that on the 27th. That's a simple solution. And then if we want to do something else, or we want to cancel the meeting, or whatever you folks think is, I think we can do whatever you would like to do. Can let me ask you, if we asked you to your availability at 1 o'clock Eastern time on the 27th to attend an executive committee meeting, would you be available? This is directed specifically to the executive committee.
I am a big, I don't know. I will
Okay,
be in the middle of Ontario, and if perchance I have high-speed internet already there when I get there, it's a probably, but if not, there's a no way, Jose, so.
yeah,
But you wouldn't
Yeah.
be attending at any time that day anyway, so that's the same
Yeah.
story.
I could do it at 1 p.m., but it would have to be for 1 hour only. I have a 2 o'clock meeting.
okay. So Shannon?
Potentially. I have a
Well-
meeting that gets done right about that time, and if I'm done in time, then yes.
Nancy? You're muted.
I said probably yes.
Well, if, I think it's okay too, if we can't get quorum. It's a short meeting, but it sounds like there's a possibility we can have quorum and, we'll ask Ellie to set a meeting for the 27th at 1 o'clock Eastern time and put in there what you want, Ellie, in terms of agenda items. And we'll hold a meeting and see how it goes.
Ellie, is
that
that
okay
really
with you,
okay
Ellie?
with you? I
That's
mean,
what I'm wondering. That sounds
on days when
stressful.
I travel, I might look like I'm available, but I mean, what's your preference? You may not want to do it that day because that's a big trip.
That sounds stressful.
Yeah, I mean, in fairness, it probably is a little stressful, and there could be some last minute thing trying to get to the airport that
Yeah,
makes me.
Let's
makes
not
it-
put you through it.
Yeah. Plus you're traveling with a little kid. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, earlier in the day would be okay, or what we can do is I mean, I would be okay with canceling for now, and then if I feel
Yeah.
the need for some emergency decision on something, because
Yeah.
we're meeting with the governing board next week, but then our next executive committee meeting isn't until August 10th.
Mm.
So I think, I mean, we have today essentially gotten the procurement authorizations we need to let us go for a while and to engage with the new auditor. So I think if there's anything that comes up that seems like it's going to require a policy decision or additional procurement, we can call an off-cycle meeting.
Okay.
I think that's a better choice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right, thank you for that. So I think now, sorry, we're a couple minutes over. So if you guys want to go into executive session, I'll keep the recording on through the executive session to start, and then someone else is going to need to do the recording to end the meeting because I won't be here.
Yeah, on that, Ellie, Adam has previously informed me that once we don't have to end the meeting, we don't need to go out of executive session to end the meeting. If we end it now and we go into executive session, that's the end of it. We don't need to do anything more at 5 o'clock. Is that correct, Adam?
No, I think you need to note on the record when you come out of executive session.
And then no decisions were made. So if someone just emails
Yeah.
that to me and to Sharon for the minutes, I think that's fine then.
Yeah, I'll drop you an email, Ellie, to let you know when we ended the executive session.
Okay, great. All right.
Okay, thanks, Ellie and Adam. Lynn, you're staying on the executive committee. Thanks for sticking around for a while. Hopefully this will go pretty fast. I move to find that premature public knowledge of Maple Broadband personnel discussions would place Maple Broadband at a substantial disadvantage if it was disclosed to the public. Is there a second? Got a second from Cy and Shannon. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Thank you. I move that we enter into executive session to discuss personnel issues under the provisions of Title I, Section 3131B of the Vermont statutes. Is there a second? Second from Nancy and Shannon again. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. We're in executive session. Thanks for your
I'm gonna stop
support,
the
Ellie.
recording and drop off.
Perfect.
Bye, Ellie.